My name is Sonia Fairchild, and last Christmas, my sister told her new boyfriend's family that I still hadn't figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up. 3 hours after I'd coordinated emergency evacuation protocols for a compromised embassy in Kinshasa, the irony of my existence has become a private source of endless entertainment. I'm 41 years old, and for the past 16 years I've worked for the Diplomatic Security Service, the DSS, the law enforcement and security arm of the U.S. Department of State. I'm a regional security officer with a GS-15 classification, which in practical terms means I'm responsible for protecting American diplomats, securing embassies, and managing threat assessments across multiple high-risk regions. I've coordinated protective details for 3 secretaries of state. I carry a top-secret/SCI clearance. I've been shot at in 4 countries and survived 2 bombing attempts. My family thinks I deliver meal kits. Not because I've told them that. I've never actually said those words. But somewhere in the 15-year game of telephone, that is my family's understanding of my life, I work in diplomatic security became, she works for the government, which became something with delivery, which eventually crystallized into the current narrative. Sonia drives around in a van, dropping off boxes of pre-portioned ingredients to people too lazy to grocery shop. The beautiful thing? I stopped correcting them years ago. Not out of defeat, but out of fascination. I have a job that requires me to read people, to understand motivations, to see what people reveal when they think they're not being watched. My family became an ongoing case study in willful blindness. And I'll admit, there's a certain dark amusement in watching them construct an entire fictional version of my life while I stand right in front of them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. My sister Kaylee is 2 years younger than me, and for as long as I can remember, she's been locked in a competition I never agreed to enter. When we were kids, she had to have better grades, not because she cared about learning, but because she needed to win. When I got into Georgetown, she applied to Princeton, because it's more prestigious. When I joined the State Department, she became a corporate lawyer because lawyers make more money. The problem for Kaylee was that I never played the game. I didn't care about her metrics of success. I chose my career because I believed in it, not because of the salary or the prestige. And that, I think, drove her absolutely insane. Because if I wasn't competing, how could she win? So she changed the rules. She decided that my refusal to brag, my inability to discuss my work in detail, my vague answers about government security work, all of it meant I must be failing. Must be embarrassed. Must be stuck in some dead-end job I was too proud to admit to. And once she decided that narrative, she sold it to the entire family with the dedication of a prosecutor presenting a closing argument. It started small, little comments at family dinners. Sonia's always so mysterious about her work. Must not be very interesting. Or, still doing that government thing, Sonia? That's nice. My parents, bless them, didn't help. My father is a retired accountant who measures success in concrete, quantifiable terms: salary, job title, benefits package. My mother is a guidance counselor who believes in practical careers and has never quite forgiven me for not becoming a teacher. They didn't mock me, exactly, but they also didn't defend me when Kaylee's little comments turned into something sharper. The first time someone explicitly stated the meal kit thing was at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Kaylee's then-boyfriend asked what I did, and before I could answer, Kaylee jumped in. Sonia works in delivery services, logistics. My father, not catching the dismissive tone, nodded. That's right. Very important work, keeping things moving. What kind of delivery? The boyfriend pressed. Kaylee shrugged. Groceries, I think? Meal kits? One of those companies. You know how it is. Flexible hours, no real commitment. Very independent. The word independent was delivered like an insult. I could have corrected her. Could have said, actually, I'm a federal law enforcement officer who protects American diplomats in war zones. But I didn't, because I wanted to see how far she'd take it. The answer was pretty far. Over the following months, the meal kit narrative solidified. Kaylee mentioned it casually to our parents, who accepted it without question because it filled in the gaps in their understanding of my life. I traveled frequently? Of course, delivering to different neighborhoods. I couldn't always answer my phone. Obviously, driving, hands on the wheel. I was vague about my work? Well, it's not exactly prestigious, is it? The narrative required no effort on my part. I simply existed, and they wrote my story for me. And I played along in the most minimal way possible. When my mother asked about the delivery job, I'd say it keeps me busy. When my father asked if the pay was decent, I'd respond, I make enough. When Kaylee asked with that particular gleam in her eye if I enjoyed driving around all day, I'd smile and say, it has its moments. Every vague answer was a Rorschach test, and they saw exactly what they wanted to see. The truth, meanwhile, was considerably different. My actual days involved coordinating with foreign law enforcement, assessing terrorist threats, managing security protocols for diplomatic facilities, and occasionally putting my body between a bullet and a diplomat whose name you'd recognize. I carried a Sig Sauer P-229 as my duty weapon. I had authorization to commandeer local resources in 18 countries. I'd been personally thanked by 2 secretaries of state for actions I would never be able to discuss publicly. But sure, meal kits, very flexible hours. The cognitive dissonance reached absurd levels. Last April, I was in Nairobi managing security for a high-level bilateral meeting when my mother called to ask if I could maybe deliver some meal kits to your cousin's neighborhood because she's interested in trying them. I was literally standing in a secure facility coordinating threat assessment with Kenyan intelligence services. I'll see what I can do, Mom, I said. You're such a good girl, she replied, even if the job isn't what we hoped for you. I hung up and went back to briefing the ambassador on terrorist activity patterns in the region. The duality of my existence was, objectively, hilarious. But it also hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. There's something uniquely painful about dedicating your life to protecting others, about carrying the weight of life and death decisions, and having your own family dismiss it all as driving around in a van. 6 months ago, things escalated. Kaylee got engaged. His name was Preston Whitley, and he was exactly the kind of man Kaylee would choose. Handsome in a generic way, successful in a very visible way, venture capital, lots of impressive-sounding deals she could mention at parties, and from a family with serious money and connections. The engagement was announced at a family dinner, and Kaylee's joy was incandescent. Not because she was in love, though maybe she was, but because she'd won. She'd found the ultimate prize in the competition I'd never entered, a husband who looked perfect on paper. Preston's family is very prominent, my mother gushed. His father knows everyone in Washington. That caught my attention, but I kept my expression neutral. What does his father do? I asked. He's a consultant, Kaylee said quickly. Government relations, that sort of thing. A consultant in government relations who knows everyone in Washington. That could mean anything from a legitimate policy advisor to a lobbying firm operator to any number of things. I made a mental note to look into it later. Old habits. The engagement party was scheduled for mid-September at my parents' house. A garden party, very elegant, with both families in attendance. Kaylee was in full wedding planning mode, which meant everything had to be perfect, impressive, and most importantly, better than anything I'd ever had. Given that I'd never been engaged, this was easy for her. You'll come, won't you? She asked me 3 weeks before the party. We were having coffee, or rather, she demanded my presence for coffee so she could talk at me about wedding plans. Of course, I said. Great, and Sonia? Her voice took on that particular edge. Maybe dress nicely? I know you're usually in your work clothes, but I'll wear something appropriate, I assured her. And please don't talk about your job too much. Preston's parents are very accomplished, and I don't want them to think. She stopped herself, but I finished the sentence in my head. I don't want them to think we're the kind of family where one daughter delivers groceries for a living. I'll be on my best behavior, I said, taking a sip of coffee to hide my smile. The irony was that I had no intention of discussing my job. I never did. But Kaylee's anxiety about it told me everything I needed to know. She'd already told Preston and his family her version of my career, and now she was terrified I'd contradict her. The 2 weeks leading up to the party were professionally intense. There was a situation developing in Pakistan, not my region. but all hands were being coordinated for potential contingency planning. I was in and out of secure facilities, on late-night calls with State Department leadership, coordinating with other agencies. I was also, according to my mother's daily text updates, supposed to be helping with party preparations. "Can you pick up the flowers?" one text read. "Sonia, the caterer needs a head count." "Did you RSVP? Kaylee needs to know." I responded to each with efficient, non-committal answers while simultaneously helping coordinate potential evacuation routes for American personnel in South Asia. My life was a study in compartmentalization. The morning of the engagement party, I received a call from my supervisor, Jerry Oakes, a career DSS special agent who'd been with the service for 23 years. "Fairchild, I know you're off today, but I need you on standby." My stomach tightened. "What's happening?" "The secretary is making an unscheduled stop in Maryland this evening. Personal visit, very low-key, but we need local assets available just in case." "You're the closest qualified RSO. Where in Maryland?" "Near Bethesda. He's visiting an old friend, some retired State Department hand." "Should be nothing, but protocol requires—" "I understand. What time?" "He'll be there from approximately 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. Stay reachable, keep your phone on. If something goes sideways, we'll need you mobile within 15 minutes. I checked my watch, it was 10 a.m. The engagement party started at 5 p.m. "Understood, I'll be available." I hung up and stared at my calendar. The overlap was tight but manageable. The party was in Chevy Chase. I lived 20 minutes away, and the secretary's location was maybe 30 minutes from there. I could make an appearance at Kaylee's party, stay reachable, and slip out if needed. It would be fine. Probably. I arrived at my parents' house at 4:45 p.m., dressed in a simple but elegant navy dress. The garden had been transformed. White tents, string lights, catered tables with immaculate presentations. My mother had outdone herself. "Sonia, finally!" My mother rushed over, looking stressed. "Kaylee's been asking where you were." "I'm early, Mom. The party doesn't start for 15 minutes. "Yes, but family should be here early. Preston's parents arrived 20 minutes ago." "Of course they did." I was herded into the garden where Kaylee stood with Preston and an older couple who could only be his parents. Preston's father was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of confident bearing that suggested he was used to being the most important person in any room. His mother was elegant in that particular way, wealthy older women perfect, understated jewelry, expensive but subtle clothing, perfect posture. "Sonia!" Kaylee's smile was bright and sharp. "Come meet Preston's parents. This is Gerald and Patricia Whitley." I shook hands with both. Gerald's grip was firm, assessing. Patricia's was brief, her smile polite but distant. "Lovely to meet you," I said. "The famous sister," Gerald said. His tone was jovial, but I caught the way his eyes evaluated me, categorizing me in some internal file system. "Infamous, maybe," I replied lightly. Kaylee laughed a little too loudly. "Sonia's always so modest. She works in delivery services." There it was. She'd preemptively defined me to Preston's parents, establishing the hierarchy. Kaylee, the successful lawyer engaged to a successful man from a successful family. Sonia, the underachieving older sister with the vague job. Delivery services? Patricia's tone was polite, the kind of polite that's actually dismissive. "Yes," my father chimed in, joining our circle with a drink in hand. He smiled, oblivious to the subtext. "Sonia works very hard. Independent job, flexible hours. She delivers meal kits, you know, the boxes with the pre-portioned ingredients, very popular these days." I watched Gerald and Patricia's faces carefully. There was a flicker of something, surprise maybe, that a member of their future daughter-in-law's family had such a modest occupation. But they covered it quickly with practiced social grace. "How interesting," Patricia said, in a tone that meant the exact opposite. "That must be fulfilling." "It has its moments," I said, echoing my standard response. "Sonia's very independent," Kaylee added quickly, and I could hear the desperation in her voice. "She's never been one for traditional career paths. She likes the freedom. Translation, please don't judge us. I know my sister delivers groceries, but the rest of us are respectable. Gerald nodded slowly. Well, everyone finds their own path. He said it kindly, the way you might speak to someone who tried their best but fallen short. Then he smoothly changed the subject, asking my father about his retirement from accounting, and I was effectively dismissed from the conversation. I drifted away toward the drinks table, checking my phone. No messages from Jerry. The secretary was presumably still at his dinner, everything running smoothly. The party filled up over the next hour. Kaylee and Preston worked the crowd like politicians, making sure everyone saw them together, radiant and successful. My mother fluttered around, playing hostess. My father held court with Preston's father, both of them discussing golf and investment strategies. I maintained my position on the periphery, the underachieving sister, present but not prominent. Several of Kaylee's lawyer friends arrived, all of them wearing their success like expensive perfume. They found me eventually, the way people at parties always find the odd person out. You're Kaylee's sister, one of them. Brittany or Bethany, I wasn't sure, exclaimed. She's told us about you. I bet she had. What do you do? Another one asked. Before I could answer, a third one jumped in. Oh, Kaylee mentioned you're in delivery, right? Like Uber Eats? Similar concept. I said, vaguely. That's so cool that you're, doing your own thing, the first one said with aggressive enthusiasm. Not everyone needs a traditional career. Some people are just happier with less structure. Less structure. As if I spent my days casually driving around without a care, rather than operating within one of the most rigid hierarchical structures in government. It works for me, I said. They nodded, already losing interest, and drifted away to find someone more worth talking to. I checked my phone again, 6:47 p.m. Still nothing from Jerry. Preston's father found me by the drinks table around 7:15 p.m. He was holding a scotch and had that slightly loosened demeanor that suggested it wasn't his first. Sonia, right? He smiled. I wanted to ask, this delivery business. Is it something you own, or do you work for one of the bigger companies? I work for an organization, I said carefully. I don't own it. And you enjoy it? The driving? The logistics? The logistics can be complex, I said truthfully. But yes, I find it engaging. He nodded, and I could see him filing me away in his mental category system. Kaylee's underachieving sister. Nice enough, not relevant to our family's interests. Well, good for you, he said with that same kindly condescension. It's important to find something that makes you happy, regardless of what others might think. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I excused myself and walked toward the house, pulling out my phone. Jerry Oakes. Fairchild. We have a situation, his voice was tight. The secretary's motorcade was involved in a minor traffic incident. No injuries, but we're activating local assets for immediate coordination. How fast can you get to Bethesda? I glanced back at the garden party. Kaylee was holding court, Preston at her side, both families mingling under the string lights. 25 minutes, I said. Make it 20. We need an RSO on site to coordinate with local law enforcement and manage the perimeter. The lead agent is requesting immediate backup. Understood. En route. I hung up and moved quickly through the house, grabbing my go bag from my car. Always packed, always ready. I keep a full tactical setup in my trunk. Body armor, spare weapon, secure communications equipment, credentials. Old habits. I was heading for my car when my mother intercepted me at the front door. Sonia, where are you going? They haven't cut the cake yet. I have to leave, Mom. Work emergency. Work emergency? Her face scrunched in confusion. What kind of emergency could there be with meal kits? I didn't have time for this. I'll explain later. Tell Kaylee I'm sorry. I made it to Bethesda in 18 minutes, which may have involved some creative interpretation of traffic laws. The scene was controlled chaos. Metropolitan Police had closed off 2 blocks, the secretary's backup vehicle was being repositioned, and the lead agent was coordinating with what looked like half a dozen different agencies. I badged my way through the perimeter and found the lead agent, a woman named Torres I'd worked with before. Fairchild, thank God. I need you on the North Perimeter coordinating with Metro PD. We've got looky-loos with cameras, and I need someone with diplomatic security authority managing the information flow. I spent the next 90 minutes doing exactly that, managing the scene, coordinating with local law enforcement, ensuring that the secretary's location and situation didn't become a media circus. It was routine work for me, but it required my specific authority and clearance. By 9 p.m., the situation was resolved. The secretary was safely relocated, and the scene was being cleared. My phone had 17 missed calls, 12 from my mother, 5 from Kaylee. I listened to the voicemails as I drove back toward my parents' house. Sonia, where are you? Kaylee is asking for you. This is very rude. Sonia, call me back right now. The last one, from Kaylee, was pure venom. I can't believe you left my engagement party. On the one night that was supposed to be about me, you couldn't even stay. What kind of meal kit emergency could possibly be that important? I pulled up to my parents' house at 9:30 p.m. Most of the guests had left, but I could see Preston's parents' car still in the driveway, along with my parents' vehicles and Kaylee's. I walked into the house and found them all in the living room. My mother looked upset, my father looked confused, Kaylee looked furious, Preston looked uncomfortable, and his parents, Gerald and Patricia, looked politely bewildered. "Where have you been?" Kaylee's voice was ice. "I had a work emergency." "A work emergency?" She said it like she was tasting something rotten. "What kind of work emergency requires you to abandon your own sister's engagement party?" "I can't discuss it." "Can't discuss it," she laughed bitterly. "Right, because your meal kit delivery job is so incredibly secretive and important." Preston's father, Gerald, had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up, his voice diplomatic. "Kaylee, I'm sure Sonia had a good reason." "She delivers food, Gerald." Kaylee's composure was cracking. "She drives around in a van dropping off boxes of groceries." "What kind of emergency could possibly—" Gerald's phone rang. The room went silent as he glanced at the screen. His expression changed, confusion, then something like alarm. "I need to take this," he said, and walked toward the window. We all watched him. His body language shifted as he listened, straightened, became more formal. His free hand went to his forehead. "Yes, Mr. Secretary. Yes, I understand. She's—" He turned, looking directly at me. His face had gone pale. "Yes, she's here. I understand, of course. Yes, sir." He lowered the phone slowly, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The room was absolutely silent. "That was—" Gerald's voice was shaky. "That was the Secretary of State." My mother made a small sound of confusion. Gerald was still staring at me. He wanted to personally thank me for hosting Officer Fairchild this evening and to apologize for pulling me away from family time for the security emergency in Bethesda. Every single person in that room turned to look at me. "Officer?" my father said weakly. Gerald seemed to be having trouble processing. His hand with the phone was trembling slightly. "The Secretary of State just called my personal cell phone to thank me for hosting." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Sonia," my mother whispered, "what's he talking about?" I could have lied, could have deflected, but looking at their faces, the shock, the confusion, the dawning realization, I decided it was time. "I'm a regional security officer with the Diplomatic Security Service," I said quietly. "I protect diplomats, secure embassies, and manage threat assessments. Tonight, I coordinated the security response when the Secretary of State's motorcade was involved in an incident in Bethesda. That's where I've been for the past 4 hours." The silence was deafening. Kaylee's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, horror. "But you said—" "I never said I delivered meal kits, Kaylee. You said that. I just didn't correct you. But the driving, the van, armored vehicles, diplomatic motorcades, not meal kit vans." My father sat down heavily on the couch. "The Diplomatic Security Service, that's federal law enforcement." "Yes. You're a federal agent?" a special agent, technically, and a regional security officer. My mother was shaking her head, trying to reconcile reality with the story they'd all accepted. But you said government work. Administrative. I said government security work. You heard administrative. Preston's father, Gerald, who apparently had enough connections to get a personal call from the Secretary of State, was staring at me with a mixture of shock and something that might have been respect. You coordinated the security response tonight, he said slowly. The secretary specifically mentioned your work, he said. Gerald seemed to be recalling the exact words. He said you handled the situation with your typical efficiency and professionalism. Typical? My father echoed faintly. I've worked with the secretary's protective detail multiple times. I confirmed. Kaylee had gone completely white. She looked at Preston, then at his father, then back at me. The hierarchy she'd so carefully constructed, successful lawyer daughter and her prestigious fiancé, underachieving sister with the embarrassing job, had just inverted in the most dramatic way possible. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, and she sounded genuinely hurt. I tried, I said simply, multiple times, but it was easier to let you believe what you wanted to believe. And honestly, I looked at Kaylee. It became interesting to see how far the story would go. Kaylee's hands were shaking. You let us. You let me tell everyone. You tell everyone what you wanted them to believe, I said, not unkindly. I'm sorry if the truth is inconvenient. Gerald cleared his throat. I think perhaps Patricia and I should go. He looked at me with new eyes. Officer Fairchild, it was an honor to meet you, truly. The word honor hung in the air. Preston's mother, Patricia, who dismissed me as having a fulfilling job delivering groceries, looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. They gathered their things and left with polite goodbyes and careful handshakes, but everything had changed. The social hierarchy had been obliterated. After they left, my family stood in the living room, nobody quite knowing what to say. Finally, my father spoke. Meal kits, he said, and his voice broke slightly. We thought you delivered meal kits. I know, Dad. Why would you let us think that? Because, I said gently, you wanted to think it. It made sense to you. And after a while it was easier than fighting against what you decided was true. Kaylee was crying now, quiet tears running down her face. Not sad tears, humiliated tears. Everything she'd built, every subtle dismissal, every condescending comment, all of it was now revealed as, what? Jealousy? Cruelty? Willful ignorance? I'm sorry, I told her, and I meant it. I'm sorry it had to come out this way. You're sorry? Her voice was hoarse. You let me humiliate myself. In front of Preston's family, in front of everyone. You humiliated yourself, Kaylee. I just didn't stop you. It was harsh, but it was true. My mother was crying too now, overwhelmed by the weight of everything she'd gotten wrong. We should have listened. We should have asked more questions. Yes, I agreed. You should have. I looked at them, my family, standing in the wreckage of their own assumptions, and I felt, not triumph exactly, but a kind of quiet satisfaction. The burden of their condescension, their dismissal, their willful blindness, I didn't have to carry it anymore. I'm gonna go, I said. Congratulations on your engagement, Kaylee. I hope you and Preston will be very happy together. I walked to the door. Sonia, my father started. I turned back. Are you safe in your work? It was the first time any of them had asked. As safe as I can be, I said. I'm good at what I do, Dad, really good. I believe you, he said quietly. I left them there in the living room, frozen in their shock and regret, and walked out into the cool September night. My phone buzzed. A message from Jerry Oakes, nice work tonight. Secretary was impressed. Drinks on me next week? I smiled and typed back, you're on. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away from my parents' house. Tomorrow there would be conversations, explanations, probably some attempts at reconciliation. But tonight I had a different kind of satisfaction. Not revenge, exactly. Just the simple, profound pleasure of being seen. Finally.